Chapter 1. The Forgotten Duty. They called him the Quiet Blade, not because he lacked strength, but because his strength was silent. In the empire of Tsukiyama, where power was displayed through conquest and pride, Lord Ked was a rarity. He carried himself not as a man hungry for battle, but as one burdened by the weight of wisdom. While other samurai chased glory through blood and fire, Ked searched for a different kind of victory, one that could last beyond death. He believed that the true duty of a warrior was not to fight, but to preserve, not to dominate, but to guide. The people often whispered, confused by his gentleness. "A warrior who teaches farmers," they said. "A general who walks among merchants." To them, Ked's philosophy felt almost heretical, but Ked would simply smile and reply, "A sword protects the body for a day. Wisdom protects the nation for 1,000 years." That single idea, that education was the armor of peace, was the foundation of everything he stood for. In an age that worshipped hierarchy, Ked dared to teach that the knights existed not above the people. But for them, by the end of this story, you'll see why his belief reshaped an empire, and why, even today, true leadership is built not on fear or command, but on understanding. Chapter 2. The Four Classes. The capital city of Tsukiyama stretched across the valley like a golden tapestry. From the palace gates to the river docks, every sound told a story. The steady rhythm of hammers from the forges, the laughter of merchants, the hum of farmers returning from the fields. These were the lifeblood of the nation, the three civilian classes: farmers, craftsmen, and merchants, and above them, in the seat of command, were the knights, the warrior class entrusted with their protection and governance. But years of peace had dulled the warriors' purpose. Knights who once carried honor in their hearts now carried arrogance in their gaze. They taxed without mercy and trained without passion, content to live off the sweat of those they ruled. When Lord Ked was appointed governor of the Eastern Province, he saw this decay immediately. On his first day, standing before rows of armored knights, he announced, "From this season forward, every knight shall spend 1 month each year among the civilians they govern, working." Listening and learning from them directly, gasps filled the hall. Some knights exchanged outraged looks. "You would have samurai toil like peasants?" One protested. Ked's voice was calm but firm. "A knight who does not understand the people cannot protect them. To lead is to serve, and to serve, one must first see." Many mocked him, but Ked began his rule not from the palace, but from the fields. He laid down his sword, rolled up his sleeves, and plowed the land beside the farmers. For weeks he learned how the rain could both feed and destroy, how a poor harvest could starve 100 mouths, and how a single broken tool could cripple a family's survival. When he returned to his castle, Ked spoke not of taxes or punishments, but of understanding. He gathered his knights and said, "You cannot rule what you do not respect. You cannot protect what you do not know." Slowly, the Eastern Province began to change. The knights grew patient, the civilians began to trust, and the markets once empty now sang with trade. But not everyone found peace in his reforms. In the shadows of his success, envy began to stir. Chapter 3. The Enemy Within. In the marble council chamber, beneath banners of crimson and gold, Lord Hisanori sat watching Ked's rise with growing resentment. Hisanori was a traditionalist, a man forged in the fire of the old ways, when strength was measured by the number of enemies slain, not by the peace preserved. "He's softening the warrior class," Hisanori spat to his advisors, "teaching swordsmen to read, to play teacher to peasants. Soon, the empire will bow to farmers instead of kings." His followers nodded, their pride bruised by Ked's influence, and so Hisanori devised a plan, not of battle, but of deception. He sent spies into the villages, spreading whispers that Ked's education tax would soon double, and that the knights would seize the farmers' grain in the name of learning. The lie spread like wildfire. Markets shut down. Farmers refused to pay dues, and murmurs of rebellion reached Ked's ears. But instead of meeting anger with force, he called for a public gathering in the city square. Surrounded by hundreds of anxious faces, Ked stood before them with his sword in one hand and a plow in the other. "I hear that I am accused of taking from the people," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "But look around you. Did I not send knights to build your wells? Did I not open schools for your sons? What, then, have I taken from you, except your ignorance of your own worth?" He placed his sword on the ground and bowed deeply. If I cannot earn your trust through truth, then I have no right to wield this blade. The square fell silent, the tension broke, replaced by murmurs of shame and respect. The rumor died, and the people's faith in him was restored, but Hisanori, humiliated by the failure of his plot, swore vengeance. Chapter 4, The Test of Fire. Not long after, a great drought swept through the land. Rivers turned to dust, crops withered, and hunger clawed at the people's stomachs. Ked immediately ordered that food from the warrior estates be distributed to the civilians. Hisanori seized the moment. He sent word to the capital accusing Ked of betraying the warrior class, of stealing from nobles to buy loyalty from peasants. Summoned before the emperor's council, Ked faced a chamber full of suspicion. One minister thundered, "Is it true that you've stripped your own class of food to feed the commoners?" Ked bowed respectfully. "It is true, a hungry farmer cannot sow. A starving craftsman cannot build. A desperate merchant cannot trade. If the people perish, then the army will crumble, for a sword draws its strength from the hand that feeds it." The emperor, an aging ruler weary of endless disputes, leaned forward thoughtfully. "You speak as though the knights exist to serve the lower classes," he said. Ked looked up, calm and steady. "They do, Majesty. The three civilian classes are the treasures of the nation. To govern them poorly is to destroy the soul of the realm." Silence filled the chamber, then, slowly, the emperor smiled. "Then let it be known. The education of knights shall be the foundation of this empire's peace." Ked was pardoned and promoted to imperial advisor, but Hisanori's bitterness only deepened. Chapter 5. The Shadow War. As the years passed, Ked's philosophy spread across the empire. Knights became scholars. Farmers learned to read. Merchants studied ethics. Prosperity grew from the roots of wisdom, but peace is a fragile thing, and men who profit from confusion fear clarity most of all. Hisanori, consumed by pride, gathered discontented lords and raised a rebellion, claiming Ked had weakened the warrior spirit of the nation. The rebellion was swift and bloody, catching the eastern provinces by surprise. When Ked received word, he faced an impossible choice. His generals urged him to strike back immediately, to crush the rebels before they gained ground. But Ked shook his head. "If I kill the uneducated for being misled, I only kill my own failure as a teacher." Leaving his army behind, he rode unarmed into the rebel camp. Hisanori laughed when he saw him. "You've come to die a philosopher's death, Ked?" Ked dismounted and spoke calmly. "I came not to die, but to remind you of what you once were. You were a warrior, sworn to protect the weak, not exploit them. You were my brother in arms before you became my enemy." The camp grew silent. Ked turned to the soldiers, his voice clear and unwavering. "You were told that education makes you weak, but ignorance is the only enemy that never dies. You rise against your brothers because no one taught you the value of unity. If you must take my life, then do it, but remember this: the moment a sword forgets its purpose, it becomes nothing but metal." One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons. Even Hisanori's pride faltered. Tears welled in his eyes as he fell to his knees. "I have lost myself, Ked. You have already won." The rebellion ended that night, not with blood, but with understanding. Chapter 6. The School of Swords. After peace was restored, Ked founded the School of Swords and Scholars, where young warriors were trained in both arms and intellect. On the walls were inscribed his 5 teachings. 1. A sword defends the body. Wisdom defends the world. 2. He who rules without empathy rules an empty land. 3. Justice is not punishment, it is correction. 4. A leader's words cut deeper than his blade. 5. Peace is the highest discipline under his guidance. Generations of knights became not conquerors but guardians. They learned that strength was meaningless without wisdom, and that power, when tempered by compassion, could shape eternity. Even Hisanori, now gray-haired and weary, joined the school as one of its first teachers. Standing beside Ked, he said softly, "You were right all along. The sharpest weapon is understanding." Ked smiled. "And the truest victory," he said, "is peace." Epilogue: The Warrior Within. In the centuries that followed, Ked's teachings outlived the empire itself. The school he founded became a symbol of balance, the harmony between strength and intellect, power and purpose. And though the age of swords has long passed, the lesson remains: every age has its warriors, not in armor, but in spirit. They are teachers, parents, leaders, Creators, people who carry responsibility for others' growth, the world doesn't crumble because of evil. It crumbles when those with power forget to teach, when those with wisdom stop guiding, when those with strength neglect to serve. Ked once said, "A leader's greatness is not measured by how many obey him, but by how many rise because of him." That truth still echoes today. So whether you lead a team, a family, or even your own mind, lead like a teacher, lead like Ked. Because when warriors become educators, peace stops being a dream and becomes a discipline. If this story moved you, share it with someone who leads, or someone learning how to. Remind them that wisdom, not power, is the sharpest weapon of all.